Simon Cowell's childhood, far from the glamorous life many assumed, was marked by emotional neglect. Born on October 7, 1959, in Lambeth, London, to Julie Brett, a ballet dancer and socialite, and Eric Philip Cowell, a stern music industry executive, Simon grew up in an affluent family. However, despite the wealth and status, love and affection were in short supply. His mother, though admired for her beauty and social grace, was emotionally distant, and his father's approval was conditional on results, not affection. As a result, Simon grew up feeling invisible and neglected. His father's silence left deep scars, with Simon never hearing the words, "I'm proud of you," from the person whose opinion meant the most. These early experiences shaped Simon into a man hungry for validation, driven to prove his worth to a world that seemed indifferent to him. School and early rejection, the boy who didn't fit. In school was no refuge for Simon. At Radlett Preparatory School, and later Dover College, he struggled to fit in, often labeled as the problem child. He wasn't unintelligent, but he was bored, unable to conform to the traditional educational system. He clashed with teachers and was dismissed as difficult, which led him to break rules and seek attention in negative ways. The lack of recognition from both his family and peers only added to his sense of being overlooked. With barely passing grades, Simon left school with little direction and no qualifications, feeling like a failure in a family where success was the only acceptable currency. As a teenager, rejection became a familiar companion. The doors of opportunity were consistently closed, and Simon was forced to confront the harsh reality of being invisible and overlooked in both his family and society. The struggles of starting over, from rejection to bankruptcy. At 22, after failing to find his place in the world, Simon's father used his influence to get him a job in the mailroom at EMI Music Publishing. This role was a far cry from the glamorous music industry he'd envisioned. Every day, Simon carried coffee to producers who didn't even know his name. The work was monotonous, and he quickly became disillusioned. After quitting in search of something better, Simon was met with more rejection. Unable to find another job, he was forced to return to the very mailroom he had fled. It was here, in the shadows of the music industry, that Simon began to feel humiliated and invisible. But these feelings also sparked something darker within him. Alone and rejected, he locked himself in the bathroom late at night and cried, not just from failure, but from the overwhelming fear that his life would never improve. However, this period of despair would ultimately shape Simon into the driven, ambitious man he would become, turning pain into power. The rise of fanfare. Records humiliated but unbroken, Simon began to study the music industry with a keen eye. He observed how records were chosen, how artists were marketed, and how fame was manufactured. His time in the mailroom was not wasted. It was his education in power. By the early 1980s, Simon had climbed the ranks to a junior A&R position. In 1983, he made a bold move by leaving EMI and launching his own label, Fanfare Records. This was his first taste of power and visibility. Fanfare achieved early success with novelty pop hits, like Sinita's So Macho, which climbed the UK charts. Simon was no longer an invisible figure. He was the boss, shaking hands with industry insiders and enjoying the trappings of success. The lifestyle, the money and vacancy, and the recognition were everything Simon had dreamed of. For the first time, he felt that he had escaped the shadow of his father's disapproval and was carving his own path. The darkest moment, crawling back from the brink. The collapse of Fanfare Records left Simon at his lowest point. At 30, living back in his childhood bedroom, he faced a future that seemed bleak and unpromising. His reputation in the industry was tarnished, and many believed his career was over. Simon withdrew from the world, avoiding old colleagues and failing to return calls. He sank into a deep depression, unable to see a way forward. The world had given him a taste of success, only to rip it away with brutal efficiency. It seemed as though Simon had reached rock bottom, but in his darkest hour, something stubborn inside him refused to give up. He began to rebuild, slowly and painfully. He took meetings with people who had written him off, pitched ideas, and accepted small consulting gigs. Simon's drive to survive was stronger than the weight of his failures, and he slowly began to claw his way back from the brink. The comeback. Embracing the masses. Simon's journey back from bankruptcy was marked by a shift in his perspective. He realized that seeking respect from critics was a losing game. The tastemakers didn't drive success. The masses did. Ordinary people like soccer moms and teenagers were the ones who bought records and watched television. It was this realization that helped Simon redefine his approach to the entertainment industry. He no longer aimed to impress the critics. He aimed to create content that resonated with the public. This lesson, born from the ashes of his failure, became the foundation of his later success. By the early 1990s, Simon had learned that fame and fortune were not just about talent. They were about timing, marketing, and understanding what people wanted before they even knew it themselves. This newfound philosophy would set the stage for Simon's dominance in the television and music industries. The reinvention, Simon Cowell becomes a mogul. Simon Cowell's second chance came with American Idol in 2002. This was the moment that transformed his life. With his keen understanding of what the public wanted, Simon became the breakout star of the show, known for his sharp tongue and unapologetic critiques. American Idol was a global phenomenon, and Simon was at its center. He became a household name, and with his success on Idol came the creation of other massively successful shows, like The X Factor and Britain's Got Talent. Simon Cowell had finally found his place in the spotlight, but his journey to this point had been long and painful. The boy who had been invisible had now become the most powerful man in television, shaping the careers of global superstars like Kelly Clarkson, One Direction, and Susan Boyle. The price of success, personal struggles, and near-death experiences. Despite his professional success, Simon's personal life remained turbulent. He was still haunted by the scars of his childhood and the years of rejection and neglect. His relationships with friends and family were often strained, and he struggled with a deep sense of loneliness. In 2020, Simon's life was further shaken when he fell from an electric bike, breaking his spine in multiple places. The accident was a stark reminder of the fragility of life. 2 years later, he fell again, and his body, now held together by steel rods, was a visible reminder of the toll his career and personal struggles had taken on him. At 65, Simon was no longer the ruthless judge the world once knew. His body was tired, and his eyes could barely focus. But despite the physical pain, Simon held his son, Eric, tighter than ever, terrified that time was running out. He had spent a lifetime building an empire, but in the end, it was the love of his son that mattered most.